Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello and welcome to the Persistence Payoff Show. We're here today on USA Global TV and Radio. I'm your host, Kimberly Schafer. I'm a first-time inventor and entrepreneur. I'm the inventor of the Ring Thing, which is a waterproof patented ring holder. It was designed specifically for rings and the wish to keep them safe whenever you have to take them off. And there's the website there, ringthing.com. This show is focused on the quality of persistence. I'm certainly on my own journey of persistence and learning about this through being an entrepreneur. And I've learned so much from the people that we've spoken with, people across all walks of life, artists, business people, athletes. We're really focusing on persistence and how people make that decision to push through challenges and keep going. I think our guest today is a great example of this. Jennifer Shaw lives in Alberta, Canada, with her husband and 2 young children. They are on their own journey of learning about their shared diagnosis of ADHD and autism. Jennifer's passion is writing, and she's the author of a 3-book series, the Callum Walker series, and the 4th book is about to come out on June 1st, so soon be a 4-book series. In addition to her writing, Jennifer is very passionate about psychology, physical health, training, and martial arts, and she infuses her creativity into all of these endeavors. So I'm really looking forward to talking with her, and please welcome Jennifer Shaw.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I'd love to start with talking about your shared diagnosis with your family of ADHD and autism. And can you tell us how that came to be and how did you find out about it?
I was diagnosed after my sons were diagnosed. I have 2 young boys, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. And when they were in preschool, I was kind of thought, I didn't really have anything to compare to, but, all the milestones that I was reading, I was like, there was something a little off. And I used to have people say, oh, they're very busy boys and they're very noisy and they're very hyperactive. And I didn't really know what that meant because it was my world. And then when my son was in preschool, there were red flags, they called it, to his behavior. And they were pointed out to me, and I didn't think anything of them because, I didn't have anything to compare to. But in 2019, my oldest was diagnosed with autism. He had a speech delay and he was ADHD. And when we went through the ADOS assessment, where they have a parent component, they ask a bunch of history about when he met certain milestones and different details of his growing up and behaviors and such. They were interested in these things. And I was like, but I've been doing those my whole life. So to me, it didn't seem any different. But and I thought, if those are the things you're looking for, then maybe I should get an assessment as well. And I did, and found out that I'm also on the autism spectrum. I have combined presentation ADHD, and recently learned that I have dyslexia.
Wow, that's really interesting how one thing led to the other. And when you did get that diagnosis, both for yourself and for your son, did that give you some comfort in saying, oh, now I understand why these things happen? Does it help it to make sense?
It definitely helped it to make sense. I mean, it doesn't make life any easier, but it allows me to understand. It's like, okay, all these years I felt like an alien dropped off on this planet. My parents were going to come to the door one day and say, oops, sorry, big mistake. That, it's just that my brain works different, and that's okay. I've never tried to look at it as a disability. It's challenging, yes. But if I didn't have autism and ADHD, I wouldn't see the world the way I do. So I would lose some of that creative, I think, that creative spell.
Yeah, that's really true. That's part of your gift, is to have that view and that filter for things. And is there a treatment for either or both of those things, or is it management, or how do you address it now that you have the diagnosis?
I think allowing myself to ask questions for the most part. I have a hard time understanding when somebody's being sarcastic or somebody's joking, for example. So I'm giving myself permission to ask. If somebody says something, are you joking? I can't tell. I can give jokes, I can give sarcasm. I just can't see it from somebody else's perspective. So it gives me that freedom to, ask. But as far as my ADHD, there is medications that you can take, and I've tried I did the behavior, trying to manage it through behavior modification through many years, and it didn't work. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to try the medication. It's not everybody's cup of tea. For me, it was night and day.
Wow, well, that's great. And and what a good approach to try everything. You tried the behavior modification, and then you found something that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how has that been for your husband and other child? So have they also adapted their own behaviors?
Yeah. So my younger one is also on the spectrum. He presents a little bit differently than his brother, where his brother has more issues with socializing, and they both have issues with impulsive behavior. But my older one does not adjust well to transitions from one event to another, whereas my younger one is more OCD. Things have to be a certain way, things have to be lined up a certain way, and he's more on the OCD presentation and stuff. But he also has autism, or he also has ADHD and anxiety. We both my boys have anxiety as well as me. And it's just been kind of a lot of research and understanding and trying to explain it to my kids as they grow, so that they don't feel like there's anything seriously wrong with them. Because there's not. They just have to learn things that don't come naturally to other people.
No, that's right. And in a way, what a gift that you are also on the same journey with them. So they're not even different within their own family. They can feel like this is just something we have and we're all dealing with it. So
yeah. I've tried to explain it to my boys how it's like your computer, and you have every single tab that can possibly be open on your browser, and you've got music playing, you got a video playing, and somebody else, I heard this description from somebody else or something similar to this. But you're multitasking, everything's there, your computer's trying to do all these things, and eventually it becomes overwhelming, and then you get the little swirly wheel of death, and then you have to restart your computer. And but before that happens, you're multitasking like nobody's business because you don't miss anything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great analogy. I love that. And it's so visual and pertinent to our lives these days. So yeah. And how old are your children now?
My youngest is 8, and my oldest is 10. I can't believe they're all I swear they were just born last year.
Yes. I can imagine.
Yeah. And I homeschooled them for the first few years. And then this is their first full year of school. So we started halfway through last year, because I got to a point where, academically I can help them, but I can't teach them to socialize. I can't make friends for them. And they were asking about friends and socializing opportunities. So we made the decision to send them to school, and they're loving it. So I'm so happy.
Yes. Well, yes, I can imagine. And it sounds like you gave them a good basis for making that transition. So, yeah. And now in terms of your writing, which, I mean, you're really accomplished with 3 books so far in your series and the 4th about to come out. Did that, were you already writing before you received your diagnoses, or how did those two things mesh together?
So I actually started writing 34 years ago. It was, I was trying to understand the world around me. I was very much an introvert. I was very much a people watcher, and I needed an outlet because, I didn't understand the world, and I didn't know what I was supposed to know and what I was supposed to do. And so I lived it out through characters and tellings. First of all, I started to read books to kind of understand. Then I started to write short stories, but I really took off when my mom bought me a typewriter. That's how old I am. So it started as an outlet, became a hobby, and then a passion, because this is, I started writing every day. And then now it's kind of a obsession / cheaper than therapy. But until I was diagnosed in 2019, I had never shared any books or any stories with anybody. And I was really shy about it. I mean, my cousin got like maybe a couple of my early stories just because I needed to share with somebody. But otherwise, I was very like hold them close to my heart. And I thought, you know what, I've been writing so long, maybe this is my special interest. So I got brave and I just finished the first book in this series. And I thought, I'm going to send it to an editor. I mean, the worst they can say is it sucks. And if they do, I'll move on and I'll just write for myself. But they came back and they said, this doesn't suck. You should publish. So 2 years later, I did. And then the next year, another book, and the next year, another book. And then I've got my 4th one on the way and I'm working on my 5th.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. And so do you, because you started writing so long ago, do you feel like you have other books sort of in your pocket that once you're done with this series that you've got something else that's ready to go?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of working on other projects on the side as well. But I've written hundreds of different stories. I've been like I said, I've been very much a world watcher, you know, just watching the world around me and trying to figure it out. But then I became very what if questioning. What if this happened? What if that happened? This, like, for example, with this series that I wrote, it was what if fairy tales were more than stories? Monsters are real. We just didn't know it, kind of thing. You know, so asking those questions gave me a lot of inspiration and I've written hundreds of stories. I mean, they're not published worthy. I have to go back and, you know, they're from my teenage years, a lot of them. But yeah, I have a lot of stories rattling around in my brain. And if I didn't write, I'd never sleep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. And I'm curious to know about the role of persistence in both of these areas. So in terms of your writing, what role has persistence played? And then also in your journey with ADHD and autism, you had to persist through being open to the information and learning about it. So I guess it's a 2-part question. One is, what role did persistence play? And where do you think that quality came from in you to allow you to do that?
Yeah, I've had, I kind of just try to keep in mind that the thing with writing and anything that's, you know, hard to do in life, it's not a race, it's a marathon. It's one step at a time, one milestone at a time. You know, it's going to be long term. And if you give up before, you know, reach the finish line, you'll never know if you'll succeed. With my autism, I'm learning so much about why I did certain things, but also too with my writing, I found that I'm writing my journey into my stories without even realizing it. I had a reader point it out to me. It's like, oh, this big epic journey where my character's trying to figure out where he belongs. You know, he's too magic for our world, too human for this magical realm. It kind of mirrors your journey trying to figure out your place in society. I was like, I hadn't thought about that. So, you know, I'm still persisting in writing my journey and trying to figure things out. And it's all about learning. And learning is not something one and done. You know, persistence and learning are very synonymous. I like learning. I never paid attention in school in English. So the fact that I'm having to learn it all, like learn a lot of the mechanics and grammatics and all that stuff now, to make myself better. I'm constantly looking forward to the future.
Yeah. Yes. That's so interesting. And what you were talking about with the, you know, acknowledging or seeing that you see the world through a slightly different lens. And it's beautiful that that comes out in your writings in that way. And you also mentioned that you recently were diagnosed with dyslexia. And I'm curious to know how that impacts your writing.
I didn't realize, I've always missed spelling words, and my spelling is atrocious. And if it wasn't for the spell checkers, I don't know what I'd do. But I've also missed a lot of little words. I'm missing words all the time. And I had a hard time, you know, keeping concepts in my head. Microsoft Word doesn't help a lot of times, because if I miss a letter at the end of a word, if it's still spelled correctly, it doesn't translate. So I've had to slow down. I've had to try things like getting my computer to read to me. I've just discovered Grammarly that even if the word is spelt wrong, if it doesn't kind of fit in the sentence, it will tell me, hey, this doesn't fit. I have an example of like missing letters. I had my character going to go out and to assess the situation, and I missed one of the S's at the end, and I got my document back and I had a little comment on the sign. It's like, multiple donkeys? And, you know, so I didn't realize how bad it was until I actually started looking at it through Grammarly and realizing I am missing so many words. So even when it's reading it back to me, but I'm trying these different techniques to try to, overcome those things. Like when I was a student in grade school, I used to grab my books and I'd take my bookmark and I would, read a line and then I move it down and read that line and move it down. Because if I didn't, I get lost from the end of the one line to the beginning of the next. And because those things were not well known at the time, I had a teacher come along, she took my bookmark and said, "That's not how you read." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, fine. I'm going to use my finger. You can't take that away," but it's just different techniques that I had to come up with without even realizing that I needed them.
Wow. And that's resilience and persistence right there, is figuring out how to push through those. Yes. Yeah. And what are the tools that you can use? And that's very powerful. And I'm curious to know with your writing. So my understanding is the genre of the Callum Walker series is, how would you describe it? Is it science fiction? Is it, what would you say?
Yeah, the Callum Walker series is magic, fantasy, action, adventure, some supernatural and suspense kind of all sprinkled in for good measure.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. It looks fascinating. And is that your area of writing in general, or do you have stories and books that you're interested in other genres, or is this kind of your home?
I've written in pretty much every genre except I don't write history because I fall asleep. I find it very boring. I don't write mystery because I'm not smart enough to figure out who done it. And I write, some bits of romance, but I don't write spicy romance. We don't need to see what happens behind closed doors.
Yeah. I agree
Everything
with that.
Else is free game if it entertains me and keeps me entertained and keeps me motivated and creatively inspired.
Yeah. I'm similar to you, where I listen to a lot of books on tape right now with Audible. And sometimes if I'm listening to a romantic story and they start to get a little bit too behind the doors, I'm like, fast forward. I really don't need to hear all of this. So.
Yeah, nobody has 3 chapters worth of stamina.
No.
A whole generation of people that are going to be very confused.
I agree. I totally agree.
I've read some spicy, they call them romanticises, and I've read some of those that, if they've got a good story, I don't mind fast forwarding through some of the spice.
Yeah. I agree. I'm totally with you on that. So the Callum Walker series. So what year was it when your first book came out in 2020? You started in
2021.
2021. Yeah. Okay. And now just in 4 short years, you already are about to release the 4th book. Mm-hmm. And is the 5th book also in that series?
It is. Yes.
It is. Yes. Yeah. Wow.
I know where the series is going to end. I just don't know how many books yet it'll be to get there. Somewhere between 6 and 9, I'm estimating.
Yeah. Well, I can understand that. I have friends who are voracious readers, and they're always very sad when the series comes to an end. So I can understand it continuing. Now, you also are quite diverse in your interests. So you have your interest in psychology, martial arts, personal training. So can you talk with us a little bit about those areas as well?
So I'm the oldest of 5 kids. I have 4 younger brothers, and I started karate because, my brothers and me started at the same time. It was right around the time, I'm dating myself. It was right around the time the Ninja Turtle movies came out. And we were moving into a town where they had karate dojos that we could go to, and we all went, and my brothers stuck it out for like 3 months, and they got to their yellow belts, and they're like, "This is boring. It's the same thing over and over again." I stuck it out for many years, and I jokingly say it was to keep my brothers in line, but I just really enjoyed it. Like, I like that repetition and then, building that muscle memory and such. As far as personal training, I've always been more of a tomboy growing up, because maybe it was because I had brothers, and there was more boy toys and boy activities in our household and stuff. But I've taken more of an interest in physical training and things like airsoft and hiking, biking, all those activities and stuff that are not traditionally, girl stuff. Although I don't think anything should be labeled as girl or boy activities anyway, but that's just another story. With the personal training, I found that it was cheaper to become a personal trainer than it was to ever hire a personal trainer. And then you have that knowledge forever. And I thought, why not? So now I am a personal trainer. I just use it for myself.
Yeah. Well, you can be your best client and also your most difficult client, depending.
Yeah, I know what to do. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
Yes.
As far as the psychology, I mean, I've been trying to figure out how my brain works forever. So that was my interest. And before I had kids, I was pursuing a master's in counseling. But then I shifted focus once I got pregnant with my second son, because I'm like, okay, they need me more than I think a schooling, pushing a schooling. And now my kids are getting older. They need me a little less. So I'm starting to rediscover who I am as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's a real a journey. You're right. You now you have more opportunity to pursue your own dreams and learn about your path, but integrating everything that you've learned along the way.
Yeah.
So do you see either of your kids have the writing bug? Do you see writing in either of them or both?
Oh yeah. I snapped a picture one time. It was really cute. Because I do write when they're like running around underfoot. And my younger son, he was about 5 or 6, and I was busy focusing on what I was doing. And he said, "Mom, you need to be quiet because I'm writing." And I look over and he's got like his toy box with its lid, and he's got this little tiny chair, the ones from IKEA that are like the squat chairs. And he's got his little Leapfrog computer open, and he's pretending to write just like me, it was adorable. But my older son has been making stories and ripping pages out of all of his notebooks, and we have to buy him more notebooks. And I was just like, yeah, he's almost the age where I was when I started.
Yes. Oh, that must be very satisfying and inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
It makes me very proud to know that I'm creating good habits in them.
Absolutely. You're being a great role model for them. Yeah. And do you, in terms of resilience and persistence across all of these things, because certainly personal training, whether it's yourself or someone else, takes a lot of persistence, and you've got to keep at it. And with the martial arts, you have to keep at it. And are there ways that you convey that to your boys? Like, do you lead mostly by example, or do you have discussions with them about the importance of sticking with something?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have many discussions. We went roller skating this weekend. My kids had never gone. And it was a very good opportunity for me to talk to them and to see how they deal with failure, because they fell so many times. And my littlest one, who's 8, he fell, gotta be 100 times. And he'd get right back up and try again, fall again, get back up and try again, fall again. And then I had to say to him, like, I am so proud that you just didn't give up. Whereas my older one fell a few times and then wanted to give up. And so we had the conversation, we went and sat down. It's like, when you start something new, you're not going to be good at it the first time or the second time, or maybe the first 50 times. It's going to take a long time and to get better at it. And then he's, telling me this, like, but all these other kids can skate and I can't skate. And I was like, how many times do you think they fell before they learned to get to where they're at now? It's a long time. It's practice, practice, practice forever. And then, just tell him that I'm not going to let him give up. We're going to try, and we're not going to leave until he lets go of the boards and he can skate, even if it's just holding mommy's hand and just skating along beside me.
Yeah. Those are such important and great life lessons that will serve them forever. And it's true for all of us. I started working out at a new gym and working with a trainer periodically a couple of times a month. And it's so interesting, even at my advanced age of, just learning that, like, you got to stick with it. You're not going to see results right away, but you have to stick with it and keep going.
Absolutely. And, I mean, if anything, like, and I like the saying that anything hard is worth doing. Like, if it's worth doing, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. Yes. It's a struggle, and it's a struggle that makes it better. Because we overcome that, then it's worthwhile, and we've accomplished something. And the harder it is, the harder we have to work, right? But the better the journey, and the better the end product. As long as you're trying to improve yourself. If you're making the same mistakes over and over again, you're not getting anywhere. It's like treadmill. You're not gonna actually go those miles, But if you learn from your mistakes, and I tell my boys all the time, I learn better from what I do wrong than what I do right. And I'm making improvement, and I'm doing the right thing if I'm not making the same bad mistakes all the time.
Yeah, that's so important and applicable. across everything. So I'm curious, in your journey as a writer, like when you're working on the Calum Walker series or any of your stories, do you work with a writing group where you have other people who periodically read your stuff, or is it really an isolated process for you to write?
A lot of it is very lonely, very quiet, very in my head. But I do have people that I'll write a chapter and I'm trying to convey a certain, idea, emotion. I don't know if other people can see it. So I have a group of people, various people that I will read sections of my in progress work to and say, can you visualize this? Does this make sense? Is their behavior sound correct? Does their dialogue sound natural? And just different elements like that. Obviously, at the end of a rough manuscript, I do work with an editor as well.
Yeah. And what is the process of actually letting it go and saying, okay, it's done, it's ready for publication? Because I'm projecting totally to say I would always want to be correcting one more thing.
Yeah.
And how do you reach that point of saying, all right, this is it, I'm ready to launch my bird out into the world?
I haven't yet, because I will think it's perfect. It's been edited. I've gone through it a million times myself, and then I will print off a bunch of books and I'm looking through it and I'm like, oh, that word is spelt wrong. Or, something I'm going to have to get to a point where I just can't read through it again. I'm just going to have to say, nope, stop, done, enough is enough, and just never read it again. And if somebody points out a glaring grammatical error, then I can go and correct it. But, as long as people like the story, and if there's a word spelt wrong here and there, because apparently I can't spell and Microsoft Word doesn't help. If they can get the story and they enjoy the story, then that's worthwhile, I suppose. I can correct little things here and there if they're very bad, but
Yes.
Little things are just going to always be there, I think.
Yes. That makes really good sense. And do you have, like, I've seen some writers discuss that they have a storyboard. So you have your series and you mentioned it might go to 6 to 9 books. Do you have all of that storied out on a board, or does it just come more organically as you're writing?
It's kind of plotted out in my head. I do a rough plot of the chapters, kind of like, well, not so much the chapters, but more like chunks of the book, what I need to portray. I know where I need to start, I know where I need to end, and I know approximately what needs to happen in the middle, the shift towards there. The rest of it, unless there's specific details, I don't really write them in. I give myself that freedom. And it allows me, it's my process and it works. It allows me to get into the zone.
Yes, absolutely. And about how long does it take you to write one of the books, at least in this series? So if you've done about 4 in 4 years, is it literally one a year, or is it more like 6 months and then you edit for a little while?
It can take anywhere, like I don't know how other people find it, but for me, it can take anywhere from 2 to 5 months to do a rough draft, but can take at least 3 times that to edit it. If you're lucky, it'll only take twice that.
Wow. And I'm curious, I've never worked with an editor before. And so I would imagine that as you're working on your draft, and of course it's personal to you and you care about it, at least in the beginning, was it hard to take feedback? Did that feel like criticism rather than refinement?
It depends on how it's presented. Like, I didn't pay attention. And I was more of a math and science geek. So I wish I'd paid attention in English. So I relied on my editors a lot more. And it was very discouraging to send them something in a manuscript and you think, oh, this sounds really good. I like this. And you get it back and there's like things crossed off and like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And what happened to here and that kind of stuff. And they make little comments and track changes. To me, it felt like my work was just being torn apart. I've gotten to a point now where when I see those corrections come back, it's like, okay, I'm going to look through these. This is an area where I can improve. How can I incorporate this into future writing? So I'm trying not to look at it as a bad thing anymore. It's a learning process again. And every time I go through an editing process, I do better the next time.
Yeah. Wow. And do you envision, once you're done with this series, do you envision your next project to be another series or short stories or standalone books?
I'm gonna do probably some of both. Like I may do another series. I didn't intend this to be a series when I wrote it. It just sort of materialized into something a little bit more epic. But I have ideas for other books. Some of them stand alone. Some of them could potentially turn into series. It just depends on how it's received and how I feel.
Yes, that makes sense. And do you ever, like you mentioned that you've got hundreds of things that you've written, and at the time when you shut something down, and do you ever think to yourself, gosh, this really isn't good at all. This is terrible.
Yes.
And then maybe a year or two later, you go back and look and say, wait, that's actually good. It's not so bad.
Yeah. I had to get to a point where I said, I'm not allowed to delete anything because I one day would go back and look at it. But I find that instead of going back and looking at, well, I will go back and I'll look at that, but instead of just, editing that, I will rewrite it, because some of the best writing is not just edited, it's rewritten completely from scratch.
Interesting. And so do you have that like in journals? Is it handwriting mostly or mostly on the computer?
It's like a little hard drive.
Okay.
Yeah, like a 1 terabyte hard drive, external hard drive that I have a bunch of stories on. I've got hundreds of stories. And I've got that backed up on one hard drive, and then one old computer, and then I've got some notes in a notebook with just sort of a title and a general idea and the question I was thinking in my head when I started the story. So I've got like triplicates of backups.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. And as you're refining things, do you see yourself, your own journey, the impact of your own journey at that moment coming through in whatever you're editing or refining? Like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, if you wrote something, you were at a different point in your life. And so now as you're rewriting it, do you see the influence of wherever you are now in those edits?
Yeah, a little bit. I still see this, now that I know I have autism, and once it was pointed out to me that my protagonist's journey in this series very much mirrors my own journey, when I'm looking back over the stuff that I've written, it's got a lot of that life influences. But then yes, like you said, there is some things that were happening in my life at that time that I've written into those stories, because that was how I dealt with things like getting bullied in school. And I wrote stories about characters getting bullied and overcoming it, because that was my way of dealing with it. So momentary, yes. Life-wise, also yes.
Yes. And when you received the diagnoses of ADHD and autism, how did your family and friends respond to that?
It took my mom a little bit, because they just didn't know. When you're a kid, you didn't recognize it and stuff. You just thought, oh, you're just quirky. That was a big thing. You're quirky. But there's also just not enough known about it, especially with my boys. It was harder with my boys because they made eye contact. And that was what I kept hearing, is like, oh, they make a good eye contact, or they don't look autistic, which to me is just, it blows my mind. How do you look? How can you see your brain? How can you, yeah. But over time, it became obvious, because I started to understand why I did certain things. And I would say, when I do this, it's because this, and this is why, because my brain works different. It became more understandable and such. I didn't really care if they believed me or not. It was me, and it made sense looking back, and I could see all the signs. So I didn't really rely on their acceptance, but their acceptance did eventually come.
Yes. Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. And also I'm glad for you. Like, I think we can all have that core of acceptance of, this is just who I am, whatever we may be facing or dealing with. And so, good for you for having that. Yeah. Are you involved in any public education programs or within your community to help raise awareness about autism or ADHD?
Not so much. I've tried. There's just not a lot in the community that I'm at. And I also don't have as much time as some parents that work from home. So I've been limited on that, but I don't make it a secret. I do talk about my autism journey and talk about those things that impact me and why I do certain things, what things bother me and such. And I've had a lot of people come back and it's like, I know so-and-so who has autism, or I think I might have autism and I do this. And there's been a lot of questions and open conversations about it. And I find that as an opportunity to educate people. I might not be a master or know everything about autism, but I can tell them what I've experienced from my own perspective and what I've read and where they can go to find the information where I went found.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great way to help people. That's a really great way, just by living through your own example and talking about your own experience. And I'm curious, something you just said raised another question for me when you talked about your schedule as a work from home person is different than other people's. How do you turn it off? Like, you're a writer. Do you find yourself wanting to write at night after dinner, or do you have to have set times to say, this is my time to write and that's it?
I will hyper-focus and sit down for hours on end and write if I didn't set alarm clocks. If I'm not writing, I'm thinking about writing, building plots and character arcs in my head if I'm not writing them down. That's why I say if I didn't write, I'd never sleep. Because I have to get them out of there and have to get them out on pen or computer document because I'm just constantly thinking.
Wow, that's so interesting. And do you get input into the covers of your books? Because
Yes.
I was looking at them. They're beautiful covers. They're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I contacted somebody I use off of Fiverr, and I tell her this is the concept that I want. They usually have some images you can kind of choose, and then they can piece them together. And I'd be like, I want this image with this kind of a background, a magical effect, and they're standing in front of a cave or whatever. And then I can choose the color scheme, and the title obviously is going to be on there. The titles are the hardest things to come up with, by the way. And then what I wanted to say on the back, and kind of, the moods that I want to portray. So.
Yes. Wow. That's so interesting. They did a beautiful job with those covers.
Mhm.
I think they're beautiful. It makes me want to get the book just to read, just based on the cover.
Yeah.
And how do you decide, like in a series, you must have some characters that carry on through all of the books and others who don't make it through even a whole book. And
Yes.
is that something that just happens organically as you're doing your writing of the characters?
Yeah, I don't ever do anything without a reason. And sometimes it's almost an instinct. It's like I'm writing along, I was, I really like this character. And then I get to a certain point, oh no, I think this character's going to die. And as hard as I try not to write them so that they don't die or they don't leave or they don't go through this horrible thing, it just happens. And it's like my characters are living their own life and I'm just watching it and writing down what's happening,
Yes. Wow. And is there a main in each of the in each book in the series, is there kind of a main lesson or story in each book?
Yes, I put a lot of just those life lessons that I've learned throughout. So the importance of family and friends, some mental health issues, the importance of dealing with that and facing it instead of burying it. And just little messages too. Like I have a message, a little saying, I can't remember the exact wording and it would take me a hot minute to find it, but something along the lines of, while the darkness screams its presence, the light will whisper its arrival. And the darkness being evilness and bad things in our world, and the light being goodness and good things in our world. And it just kind of, that one, for example, stems from my understanding of whenever you're watching the news, 90% of what you're seeing is going to be like big, bad things and, traumas happening here, bad things happening there, big things that could be problems, little tiny bit of good news.
Yes, that's really, it's a perfect analogy. You're so right. You're so right. Well, our time has flown by. We're almost at the end here, and I've so enjoyed this. Before we go, I wanted just to give you the opportunity to let people know how they can connect with you and where can they find your books.
Yeah, so best place to check to find all of my links and such is my website. It's www.jmshawauthor.com. You can find links to my Instagram and Facebook, so you can follow me along. There's links to Goodreads at the bottom of my page, or at the bottom of my website. And then under each book, there's the synopsis, and there's links to find them online. They're available as a print through Amazon. They're also on Kindle, and the first two are on Kobo. The third one will be on Kobo soon. And they're also on Barnes & Noble ebook. For the first two, they will be on there for the third and the fourth eventually. Yeah.
All right. That's great. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story. And I'm excited to read your series. I'm going to get them because it just looks really interesting. So thank you for that.
You'll have to post a review and tell me what you think of them.
Absolutely. I shall do that. Yes. Thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, who doesn't want to come and talk about their passion, right?
Yes. Yes, that's right. Thank you. I'm really grateful.
Thanks for having me.
So at the end of every show, I read a quote about persistence. And again, I feel like the quote that I picked ahead of time before our discussion fits perfectly with the discussion. This is from Muhammad Ali, who said, "If my mind can conceive it, if my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it." And I think that fits so well with our conversation today and Jennifer's story. In terms of connecting with me, I would love to hear from you. You can find me through my website, ringthing.com. My email is kimberly@ringthing.com. And you can also reach me through USA Global TV and Radio. We're here every second Tuesday, so we'll be back in 2 weeks, and I look forward to talking with you then. Thank you so much.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents our partner and sponsor, Mr. Philip Sykes and the British School of Excellence. Building confidence, changing lives. And now, proudly presenting the Polished Professional.
On a transformative journey with the British School of Excellence's comprehensive suite of masterclasses, crafted to elevate your professional and personal life. 8 outstanding modules will elevate you to the next level. Module 1, Exploring Life's Purpose, delves into the depths of self-discovery, guiding you to chart your unique path to fulfillment and success. Module 2, Mastering Professional Presence and Confidence. This masterclass is a deep dive into the art of self-assurance and commanding presence, which is essential for standing out in today's competitive landscape. Module 3, Learn the secrets of visual impact, how to curate a personal style that amplifies your professional brand. Module 4, Mastering Professional Etiquette and Communication Excellence, navigating the nuances of corporate interaction with grace and tact. Module 5, Elegance in Eloquence. We impart powerful techniques to captivate and persuade any audience with your oratory skills. Module 6, Unlock the potential of your emotional intelligence, EQ, and harness the ability to connect, empathize, and lead with emotional savvy. Module 7, Mastering DISC, building a gateway to understanding behavioral styles, fostering better personal and professional relationships. Module 8, Mastery in Dining Etiquette, building your confidence to perfect the subtleties of dining with finesse, enhancing your social savviness at any table. Step into the Polished Professional program where poise, elegance, and excellence aren't just taught, they're instilled for life. Join us to redefine your potential and polish your professional edge.
To learn more, go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. The British School of Excellence are investors in people. Let us invest in you.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.